Not that Ben. Other. Yeah. We're pretty clear which Ben we're talking about here. There we go. What are your thoughts about grandmother?
She's dumb. Worst character in existence.
She tends to be a divisive character where every now and then, kind of like Holden Caulfield, where, not that people go, oh, I love grandma, but we'll have people who like feel bad for her, like, oh, she's just a sweet old lady,
I agree
and
with
other
Misfit.
folks tend to take
like
a different viewpoint. And it wasn't the question that you were answering on Google Classroom, do you like grandmother or not, but I was getting the sense that more people were kind of frustrated with her than anything else. Kiera has the look that she likes sweet old grandma.
Yeah, I'm with Kiera.
Such anger, Ben.
Terrible, awful. She killed her entire family and then herself deservedly.
She indirectly got them all killed.
Now, she did indirectly, she directly killed
She wasn't like, hey, there's a murderer down the road, let's go there. But
She had a mistake. She didn't see anything on her.
yeah, exactly.
She did go, hey, you're the misfit, aren't you?
She didn't get them killed by saying that.
Well, like the kids all upset in the back of the car. We have to go see this house, and like I just want her for the parents. And he's probably like, what's
Okay, she was manipulative. She was manipulative.
And
And
grandma. You know what?
Kiera, do you feel the need to like stand up and defend grandmother? Okay, what do you like about her?
we have to say,
She's really not that bad. She's not evil.
even the
Grandma,
narrator.
shit.
Let her speak.
Sorry.
Hey, but that's not a reason that she should have been shot.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, like, don't say worst character or whatnot, but like, what would be a word to, like, one word describe her?
Frustrating.
Okay.
Sassy. Fussy.
What else? Like other words that you would use to describe, and they don't have to all be negative connotation. And Kiera, you don't have to write this down if it's making you feel bad.
Like a nuisance.
Okay.
A burden.
Wow. Ruthless.
Nuisance have two S's, one S.
Two.
Do not say it.
Nuisance?
Do not
Assistant? It's two. There's
It's.
you
Are you kidding?
Someone's, I don't remember who said it. Someone said use an M word, I think. Like with her and the kid, like manipulative.
I said manipulative. And I kept pronouncing it wrong. Manipulative.
Kiera, are you thinking like innocent or?
I mean, I just don't think she's manipulative. I mean, she might have been annoying at times.
Sure.
But I think family members are annoying at times, They make mistakes. I don't think she was really trying to cause harm, though.
So I don't mean this to sound like
She wasn't. Yeah, I kind of.
like typical human, normal. Okay.
I think she means well. She's just a crabby old lady.
I don't think she's even crabby.
I think she'd
I
be well
think she
something like
wanted to
that.
just go do whatever in whatever state, and then she made a mistake of where they were. And then she thought they were in one state and wanted to go see her old house. If anything, she's nostalgic because she wanted to go see that old house.
Yeah, but the way she went about trying to get them to do it, she knew that by manipulating the children, that the father would have to do it.
The children are brats.
Yeah, the children are
Yeah,
brats, but they're nice.
Everyone in that
No,
family.
they're not
But they're
nice.
not. The children are brats, but they're nice.
Do you remember Walker and Texas Ranger from Talladega Nights? Not Walker Texas Ranger, but like Walker
The
and
kids,
Texas
yeah.
Ranger, the kids.
Okay.
Ricky Bobby's kids.
Okay.
I like June Stark. She was a little. She even until they were being killed. She's like, I don't want to hold hands with you. You look like a pig.
When they are at Red Sammy's, I would say nostalgic does become a very good word to describe grandmother as well as Red Sammy, because what are they kind of reminiscing about?
The good old days.
The good old days when you didn't have to lock the screen door and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, certainly in some ways, and I think you could say that this is certainly typical, or at least what younger generation would argue is typical of older generation. What does the older generation tend to do? when reminiscing about the good old days.
Bring down the
Things
good
were
days.
so much better back then. People weren't walking into each other because they were staring at cell phones or pulling out, cameras on their phones just because there's a fight going on the first floor. People actually read books. They didn't look at smart notes all the time. Actually, they looked at clip notes, which is what they look for. But you go through all that kind of reminiscing about how things used to be better. So her and Red Samley certainly do this a good bit. Reminisce.
What's his wife's name?
The good old days of the music.
Betty.
They're right now.
Good old
They
days.
don't live in a president. What's the quote from The Office that Andy says?
I wish someone told you were in the good old days.
Or not in
Before you go. Yeah.
What, and I don't know if necessarily you would, if you would say this would be the term that would go along with it, but if you are reminiscing to the point of where you are setting yourself up as being so much better than other people, now what would we use to kind of start to describe that? Selfish, saying a word, condescending, arrogant. The Greek term back in theater, I don't know if you guys went over this with Julius Caesar, because we would say that Caesar would deal with this H term, that he has too much hubris. Okay? So yeah, arrogance, condescending, hubris, those would all be things that you could argue that her and Red Sammy potentially are dealing with. Where's Red Sammy's place?
Side of the road, middle of nowhere.
Just outside the city of, or the town of?
That's like Tombsville or something like that.
No, they drive through Tombsboro, and they go past an old family plantation that has 5 or 6 graves on the side.
Yeah.
And there's Mom, Bailey, little baby, Grandma, June Star, John Wesley. Hey, 6 of them. How about that? But it's another T-town.
It just seems
Titus.
Well, the building that the restaurant's in is called the Tower.
Tombsboro.
No? They go through Tombsboro. But they are the building is referred to as the Tower, even though it's Red Sammy's, and they are just outside the town of Timothy.
Isn't his last name like Sammy Butts or something like that?
Why are you picking on Red Sammy?
Wait, was it though?
Why did he
Why is that a problem?
It's detrimental to the story.
Detrimental.
It means essential.
No, I said,
Oh,
I
sorry.
said,
It's
because he
vital.
said he doesn't think Sam knows.
Oh, was it?
Red Sammy,
Keep stuff.
Grandma. Feel like bad for writing Red Sammy in blue, but oh well.
His name is Red Sammy Butts.
Yes.
Town of Timothy.
Is that like a biblical name?
Well, it's an odd name for a town.
Yeah.
Is it?
It does have
Was
some.
that the first thing with the misfit and like you missed that?
No. It's meant to be town. But I would say with having Timothy and combination of them being in the tower, the building of the tower displaying some arrogance, I do think that O'Connor's kind of starting to put some things together where that would equal some of her illusions that she's starting to throw out there. Any towers you know about?
Sears Tower.
Sears Tower, Tower London.
That's good.
Sorry, this is my pass. Do you want that?
Tower Battle. No other towers. Good. Babel's the one I was going with, so that works. Sam, do you know about the Tower of Babel?
Yeah, it's the tallest thing in the world.
It's
No.
not. That's
Still is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To this day.
that's the was the Burj Khalifa.
Emily, you familiar with Tower of Babel?
They tried building like a tower up to heaven, and then that was where they all started speaking different languages,
Yeah.
and it fell apart.
What is this?
You never heard about this?
It's a story in the Bible.
Oh,
This
no.
was
Pretty big story.
This is when God created the languages because humans were too arrogant.
Yeah.
So that's why he split up.
She likes Jesus. I forgot. She doesn't make Jesus bad. Girl.
They do
Person,
that.
woman. Person.
So, in Old Testament, Tower of Babel, and the idea, I kind of drew it like a spring, like a corkscrew. There, archaeologists think if they were to build such a tower, it'd probably have to be like ramp structure, as opposed to like pyramid, where you'd be taking blocks and things like that, so that you'd be able to kind of work its way up over and over and over. As what Katie, you were talking about then, as people try to go up to heaven. So the idea is you have humans down here. They want to be on the same level as God. So they build a tower that would go up to heaven, and then God becomes upset, and they are dispersed amongst various places, and that's when you have languages that are created, because you're going from one universal language to now a whole bunch of different languages. So what do we say when a little kid is talking for the first time and we can't understand what he or she is saying?
Oh,
They
Babel.
are babbling. So the etymology, the root is coming from the Tower of Babel. The sin that they are guilty of would be that they have too much arrogance, that they think they are able to kind of be on the same level of God. Now, whether or not you would use arrogance as a way to kind of describe the grandmother, is certainly going to kind of vary from person to person. What are some things that she does, and it doesn't even have to be within the story of Red Sammy, what are some of the things that she does that you could kind of view as, okay, maybe there is some arrogance about her, which doesn't make her worse than any typical person, because I think all of us are probably guilty of some arrogance at some point. But what are some things that she does that you can kind of sort of go, okay, I can see where this is coming from?
Well, when they're like, when the Misfits talking to all of them, like, killing all of them, she remains very calm and doesn't stop like complimenting him because she probably thinks like, I am this mighty woman that like is all deity in God, and like I can stop this man from killing him by like making him believe in his faith again or something.
Well, and what her whole mindset is, when her confrontation with the Misfit takes place, could be all over the place. Obviously from fear or maybe trying to help him and things like that. What's one of her go-to lines as to why you're not going to shoot me? You wouldn't shoot
A lady.
a lady. You wouldn't shoot a woman. Now, would you? So, maybe part of it. Well, I'm a sweet old lady. You wouldn't shoot me. How does she dress?
Wears all this fancy
they, like,
stuff, but like traditional stuff.
Didn't O'Connor say that you would know she was the lady if you saw her just body or whatever?
So she dresses up wearing the proper hat, so that if she were ever caught dead on the side of the road, whoever goes by would know that she is a good, quote-unquote, Southern woman. So she wants to present herself in that, yeah, she is a good, pious Southern woman.
Yeah.
It's because you're too good for this stuff.
At the same time, with her, and you could certainly argue, if I were stuck in the backseat with John Wesley and June Starr, yeah, I'd be going nuts after a while too, and would probably try to manipulate Bailey to get us off the road so I could get out of the car and not worry about things. But she realizes they're going down the wrong way, or realizes that they are in the wrong state, where she has this embarrassing thought, but doesn't say anything about it, and then, you have the whole issue with the cat Pity Sing. Is she supposed to bring the cat along with her? No. It's the cat's fault. It's not her fault, Maria. It's the cat's fault.
Yeah, but she brought the cat.
True.
It's always been taken.
But she
Darn
can't control
Pity
the cat.
Sing.
She should have brought it in the first place.
It would've gone-
She makes comments along the way with some of her stories and who they see along the side of the road, that she still has some Southern racist kind ideas whatnot to her. So does she come off as a good, pious woman? No. Does she come off as being human and fallible? Certainly. The level of that fallibility with her arrogance is probably going to be a little bit more of an eye of a beholder. But with the restaurant being the tower, her and Red Sammy having arrogance, and the fact that it's outside of Timothy. Timothy in New Testament is Timothy works with Paul, writes letters for Paul to various churches. So there's the book of Timothy. In the book of Timothy, he essentially, and so this is Paul speaking, basically is giving the rules as to what it takes to be a good person. So you are supposed to honor your parents. It's not all Ten Commandments stuff, but it's basically, that you should honor your parents. As a parent, you should raise well-trained, obedient children. You should make sure that they are dutiful and respectful to all folks. Essentially, it seems that it's the opposite of what you have with June Star John Wesley. Remember that O'Connor, strict Southern Catholic, one of the things that she would say is a problem within society would be that people are too lax when it comes to following strict moral codes. Not that they just have to solely be religious, but that they're not following the necessary moral codes. So the way that the parents are raising the children could be an issue. The way that grandmother is trying to present herself as being a good, pious person when she's speaking with Red Sammy and talking about how, the world's kind of going to rot and generations aren't like what they used to be. Maybe there's a little bit more arrogance than truth to what her words would lead one to think. I don't know if O'Connor does this on purpose, but I think it's kind of funny in a way that she does. Historically, anyone know who John Wesley is?
Sounds like a
I
cowboy.
know it's.
I would think in A-Push his name would have come up
Is he a cowboy?
about where were you guys? You said Gilded Age? Be before this.
Wait. He was a preacher.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. He was the Great Awakening preacher.
Sounds like a cowboy.
He is the founder
Yeah.
of the it's Protestant
Is it Methodist?
Methodist Church.
I got the rest.
And again, I don't know if she's doing this on purpose or not. I think it's kind of interesting, though, that she uses John Wesley and kind of makes him a little bit of a brat child, where if you're coming from the strict Catholic viewpoint, you could argue that a Methodist might be a little too lax in his or her beliefs with things. So she kind of takes this, guy, uses him maybe as a little child, a wimpy little kid who's kind of annoying. This could be a little bit of a ribbing kind of criticism that could be taking of, what was going to be a pretty predominant Southern religion, Methodist, Baptist, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, and doing a little bit of criticism by making him come off as like a little bit of a snotty kid. But the fact that grandmother's colors kind of come through within the tower at the restaurant with Red Sammy outside of Timothy, I think this kind of arrogance idea is something that O'Connor's trying to lead us into. Which brings in then the misfit and that whole conversation that those two have. There was some interesting ideas that were coming up with as to Misfit's idea about she would have been a good woman if someone had been there to shoot her every minute of her life. Misfit as a whole, how would we characterize this guy?
He seems like a mentally unstable.
Yeah, she likes to shoot children.
Also, are the Methodists the people who go to church on Saturdays? Who goes to church on Saturdays?
Multiple churches, multiple denominations.
How did you
Well,
feel
tr-
with
Non-denominational churches.
The Sabbath was originally Saturday.
Is that why there's 2 days and 2 weekend days? Or
I don't. The history of the work week, I don't know, and I couldn't say when. I knew this at one time, and now I'm going blank. I don't know, roughly when the change took place. As to Sabbath is going to go from a Saturday to a Sunday, like blue laws and all that kind of stuff. But I certainly in today's world, I bet you probably have every denomination would have Saturday services. Whether Saturday Mass taking place or Lutheran churches, have their stuff on Saturday.
I just wanted to say that some people take their Sabbath on a Wednesday because you're supposed to not do anything on Sabbath. Some people move their services
So
around
it's
so
flexible.
you can
Don't people
take a day.
That's old school. No, but
Yeah, during Lent it tends to be and that's not just going to be solely a Catholic thing either. It'll vary. Mentally unstable. I mean, serial killer. I don't know.
a lot of mentally stable serial
Did anyone else watch the Ted Bundy tapes?
Yes.
What else? Misfit. Who's not Ted Bundy?
He is.
He's
I think
smart.
he's kind of insecure.
I think he's good at what he does.
Some male cans.
What do you, insecure like?
Like, just like, he doesn't really, like, he's so set on one thing, but then, like, he'll do something and then he's kind of just, like, upset about it.
What's he upset about?
Like, after the grandma dead, he, like, was like, shut up, it's not funny. And that, like, he was, like, making jokes of her.
I think he was just he's trying to be like, oh, yeah, I just killed an old woman. We shouldn't be
Who's he accused of killing? Like, I mean, we know he kills in the family, but who is he accused of killing? Like, as to why he's escaped prison? He's in jail for having killed
His parents.
his father. What's his kind of like argument about it?
He didn't actually.
I did not do it, and they've never showed me my papers as to what is it that has actually kind of put me in here. So, and you could certainly argue that this would be like mentally unstable, that maybe he's kind of denying it or whatnot, but he is certainly upset, agitated, not happy about the way that he is being treated, and obviously you could go that he is a character who does not fit in, hence that's why he gets the name The Misfit. Anything else about him?
What was that thing he was talking about? He was like, I was buried alive. I just never really understood. He like never really gave like a proper reason as to why he was being buried alive.
I think it was a metaphorical or was it literal?
We're,
Yeah, sure.
What do you sort of
he gives a good line about there never was a body that gave the Undertaker a tip.
That's a cool line.
I understand
That's
it.
a really good line. Can't imagine a situation in which I would ever use it, but it's always in the back of the head.
Yeah, it seems like it's weird.
keep it active.
But when you can use it, it'd be really good. Yeah.
That's gonna look for an opportunity.
Look on page 20. If you don't have your copy, follow along with someone, because we're going to probably take a look at some of the way that O'Connor set this up. Alone with the Misfit, so this is the first full paragraph. Alone with the Misfit, the grandmother found that she had lost her voice. There was not a cloud in the sky nor any sun. There was nothing around her but wood. She wanted to tell him that he must pray. She opened and closed her mouth several times before anything came out. Finally, she found herself saying, Jesus, Jesus, meaning Jesus will help you. But the way she was saying it, it sounded as if she might be cursing. Yes'm, the Misfit said as if he agreed. Jesus thrown everything off balance. It was the same case with him as with me, except he hadn't committed any crime, and they could prove I had committed one because they had the papers on me. Of course, he said, they never showed me my papers. That's why I signed myself now. I said long ago, you get a signature and sign everything you do and keep a copy of it. Then you'll know what you've done, and you can hold up everything you do and keep a copy. Then you can hold up the crime to the punishment and see do they match, and in the end you'll have something to prove you ain't been treated right. I call myself the Misfit, he said, because I can't make what all I done wrong fit what all I gone through in punishment. There was a piercing scream from the woods, followed closely by a pistol report. Does it seem right to you, lady, that one is punished a heap and another ain't punished at all? Jesus, the old lady cried, you've got good blood. I know you wouldn't shoot a lady. I know you come from nice people. Pray, Jesus, you ought not to shoot a lady. I'll give you all the money I've got. Lady, the Misfit said, looking beyond her far into the woods, there never was a body to give the Undertaker a tip. There were two more pistol reports, and the grandmother raised her head like a parched old turkey hen, crying for water, and called, Bailey boy, as if her heart would break. Jesus was the only one that ever raised the dead, the Misfit continued, and he shouldn't have done it. He's shown everything off balance. If he did what he said, then it's nothing for you to do now but throw away everything and follow him. And if he didn't, then it's nothing for you to do but enjoy the last few minutes you got left the best way you can by killing somebody or burning down his house or doing some other meanness to him. No pleasure, but meanness, he said, and his voice had become almost a snarl. Maybe he didn't raise the dead, the old lady mumbled, not knowing what she was saying, and feeling so dizzy that she sank down in the ditch with her legs twisted under her. I wasn't there, so I can't say he did it. And Misfit said, I wish I had been there, he said, hitting the ground with his fist. It ain't right. I wasn't there because if I had been there, I would have known. Listen, lady, he said in a high voice, if I had been there, I would have known, and I wouldn't be like I am now. His voice seemed about to crack, and the grandmother's head cleared for an instant. She saw the man's face twisted close to her own, as if she were going to cry, and she murmured, why, you're one of my babies. You're one of my own children. She reached out and touched him on the shoulder. The misfit sprang back as if a snake had bitten him and shot her 3 times through the chest. Then he put his gun down on the ground and took off his glasses and began cleaning.
What is he talking about? Like even I don't know. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Jesus.
Yeah, but he's just rambling about it like a crazy person.
That's what I meant by like he's like
Pardon?
he doesn't like the fact that he's supposed to bring her.
Well, I think, and with the mentally unstable part that you mentioned, I think he's kind of going back and forth between 2 narratives almost. I think one of them, I wish I had been there, going back to like Jesus with raising the dead and all that kind of stuff. He's why according from misfit logic, which we've got unstable serial killers in here, although I did have my ball. Hopefully. Why would that throw everything off balance?
If you raise the dead,
That could be one thing, yeah.
well, because I mean, if you raise the dead, you're messing with the laws of time travel. You're just gonna open up a whole can of worms.
Oh, we're going back to time travel in Siddhartha. Can't escape it.
It kind of like splits up, like the splits life into 2 things. Where like either if he did resurrect him, like, there's nothing for you to do but follow him. But if he didn't, then like, what's the point? You might as well do whatever you want. In this case, he says that you should just be as mean as possible.
From a Christian standpoint, why does Jesus die?
Just say that.
From our sins. Okay? So, how would this throw everything off balance?
Because we should pay for his sins.
Because we
What
didn't pay
did-
for them.
What did he have to do?
He paid
Yeah,
for a
this-
sin he paid for a sin he didn't commit.
We don't know for
He
sure.
thinks he didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
He paid for sins that Jesus should have paid for.
So, other people get saved.
Oh, he's saying that he did.
I have to face punishment now, and I think this is where you kind of get a little bit of double meaning, where I think he doesn't have a real clear, lucid feeling. I wasn't there. I do think he's also kind of in his own mind talking about the killing of his father, but it's kind of going back and forth between viewpoint of I wasn't there when Jesus died, I wasn't there, I didn't kill my father, but those kind of stories get melded together a little bit. But throws everything off balance. I had to pay for a sin that in his mind I didn't commit, yet these people sin when they get saved. Now, how would you describe grandmother's whole, and one other thing too, because people kind of go, oh my goodness, is it one of her boys? Is it one of her kids and all that kind of stuff? I'd say no. Keep in mind, what's the misfit wearing at this time?
Pants.
Yes, he is wearing pants. Earlier, he wasn't wearing a shirt, but now he's wearing Bailey's shirt with the parrots and stuff on it. So I would imagine the grandmother's going through a whole bunch of like, oh, what's going to happen to me? And you look up and you see the parrot Hawaiian shirt and go, you're one of my babies. So one possible explanation could be she's just seeing Bailey at this point. Keep in mind, Bailey's just been shot. You could also argue, and this might be something, no offense, that Kiera would be going for. Why go, you're one of my babies? We're all part of the same family. If she really is a truly good Christian, pious, moral lady, it could be, hey, trying to help you. You can find some redemption. Maybe you can find some kind of resurrection of the spirit, so to speak, that you don't have to go down as being a serial killer. Other flip side of that could be, what is she doing? She is doing whatever in the world she can possibly think of in order to survive. I'll give you all the money I've got. You wouldn't shoot a lady now, would you? You're one of my babies. I'm mom. Don't shoot me. So those things could all be going on. the one thing that strikes me, and I've never seen anything so far as like usually when we go over all this stuff, I like to have like some literary critique that kind of backs up the ideas that we talk about. I've never seen anything about it, but the middle paragraph on this page drives me nuts. From a syntactic standpoint, there was a piercing scream from the woods, followed closely by a pistol report. Does it seem right to you, lady, that one is punished a heap and another ain't punished at all? Look at the next paragraph, and look at the way that the syntax is done. The one right after, ain't punished at all. So the one that starts off Jesus exclamation point.
Read half of them.
What is syntactically ambiguous about that paragraph?
She says Jesus, like she's referring to Jesus, and Jesus, you should not shoot a lady.
The way that it is written, yeah, like it's like she's having a conversation with Jesus.
He's like reverse Jesus.
And yeah, I mean, by no means is this like, this isn't Thomas Jefferson. And no, I don't think Flannery O'Connor is going to, hey, the misfit is Jesus or anything like Jesus was a serial killer.
Which is a
But-
different thing in the Bible.
That would be a different thing.
That is a different thing.
But dependent upon your viewpoints of grandmother, if you're going with her as being the arrogant, manipulative old windbag, sorry, Kira,
She's in the minorities.
what's happening here?
She is having a crisis. She's having a crisis.
She is in the
trying to
middle of a
manipulate and it's not
brain,
working.
a panic attack.
Maybe he didn't raise the dead, the old lady mumbled, not knowing what she was saying and maybe feeling so dizzy that she sank down in the ditch.
She's down.
And like in some ways, like I've never had like a gun, straight at me, like about to die or anything like that. Or is someone going to be doubting at that point? I think you'll have a significant amount would. I wasn't there, so I can't say he didn't. I wish I had been there, he said, hitting the ground with his fist, this bottom paragraph again. It ain't right there, because if I had been there, I would have known. Listen, lady, he said, if I had been there, I would have known, and I wouldn't be like I am now. His voice seemed about to crack, and the grandmother's head cleared, I think that's an important word, cleared for an instant. She saw the man's twisted face close to her own as if she were going to cry, and she murmured, why, you're one of my babies, you're one of my own children. If her head actually clears, and then she goes with that, you're one of my babies, you're one of my own children, if she was the old manipulative, arrogant person, what seems to be happening right at this point? Right before her death,
She's not like that. She changes.
she has a transformation, as you see your whole life before your eyes, or, who knows. But there does seem to be an authentic change. She reached out and touched him on the shoulder. Misfit sprang back as if a snake had bitten him and shot her 3 times through the chest, and then cleans the glasses. And then you go to, the line that you guys were referring to. She would have been a good woman, Misfit said, if it had been somebody there to shoot her every minute of her life. Right before her moment of death is when she receives her moment of clarity, possible redemption, things of those of grace, salvation, some nirvana. Enlightenment, maybe.
That's called back in the business.
But in some ways, what does this guy end up providing for her?
His fit is Jesus.
No.
It's not.
No, I can see exactly. Everyone's Jesus.
Hey, when she goes to touch him, it's like a snake bit him. I mean, she could be like the devil, the serpent. She has to shoot him 3 times. Holy Trinity, there you go, misfit. Hey, looks like a crooked cross. He was crucified. He has 2 henchmen on each side of him. Bobby Lee and Hiram.
Okay, stop it.
my gosh.
That's so weird. I hate all these religious connections.
What's his what are their names?
Bobby Lee and Hiram.
Not, no.
In the Bible?
Thieves.
They are just
Like in the story.
The thieves.
In the
Jesus
Bible?
is
in the Bible.
crucified.
Oh.
There's the 2 that are next to him. They're not named.
I don't
Are they
know
both
if
thieves?
This is an uncharted
There,
thing.
there might be names like in a text somewhere. I'm not
One
sure.
is saved.
Saint Dismas. See Dismas and it's Dismas and
No, it was a Pettigrew.
I don't think she related to them.
no. This is just
Can't say.
Nothing.
Um,
if only there was some Catholic people.
So tomorrow, Here's what we're going to do, because with, I think, both stories, there's still going to be questions as to, alright, so what's the point? What's the argument? Like, crappy essays for these short stories end up being like, people have two sides to them.
Wow.
Okay, no kidding. People can change. Okay.
Ooh.
So tomorrow, what we want to do is look over the stories, come up with what would be more of an overall argument purpose, and then what are some devices that align with them. The nice thing about O'Connor's stories, nice thing number one, short stories, they tend to use a lot of overt rhetorical devices, figurative language, because they're trying to pack a punch in a short amount of time. She tends to have a lot of crossover, so there's allusions in both stories, there's foreshadowing in both stories, there's juxtaposition occurring in both stories. So I think you'll be able to find things. Keep in mind, you only have to write about one. The hope is that we're able to kind of create a more, I want to say, maybe sophisticated argument. Being kind of general with the presentations of the stories, because this is where we're going to try to get you a little bit more ownership, over the argument, the devices, and that kind of stuff. So we'll go over this tomorrow. You'll have a full week from tomorrow before you submit on Wednesday.
It's the two PhDs.
Bob and I see Chris Perry.
This right next to is Dismas and who was the other one?
I have no
I'm
idea.
so sorry.
I didn't think they were named.
I already bought my dog. I can
Okay.
yeah.
I would say he's the one figurative.
If you look at the next paragraph, it does say, he does say
I don't think he
basically
was
just
literally
say he was
buried alive in
in
there.
jail cell, like he was just like put in there. I think
Yeah,
it,
like
I think
trapped.
it was, yeah.
Yeah,